We good now? Let's see. Yeah, there we are. It didn't work the first time. I don't know, I've been having weird problems with OBS. Let's see. Hello, hello. Yeah, so this is just gonna be the entire stream is just gonna be this. So I don't even have the game open. But that's okay. Let me now put this in Discord. A lot of you guys probably already saw this, but I've been purposely making sure that I haven't seen anything about it. I have seen, I have seen that apparently Pasha at some point says that both Surge and Eclipse are going to get a nerf. People have been saying that, and I did happen to see that. But apart, I've been trying not to spoil anything. So if you try to spoil something, I'll ban you. Not, but yeah, just keep it to yourself. We'll watch the entire thing. Why is it still for? I haven't started it yet. Yeah. Oh, yeah, sure. Let's put Hypho. I do have it in the description of the stream, but let's put it here as well in the chat. Let's pin that. Anyone here with questions related to? I mean, I'm not going to answer random questions. I'm going to focus on this video. So if you want to ask a question, I would prefer that it's relevant to the video or whatever it is that we're talking about at the time, right? If you have a question related to should I buy this or should I upgrade this, I would say don't spend resources for now. A lot of things are going to get buffs and nerfs, and we don't know what is going to get a buff and a nerf. This they said that they made an announcement the 27th. There's going to be buffs for a couple things, nerfs for a couple things. That's not the only one they're doing. They're going to be doing more. Those aren't the only buffs and nerfs they're going to be making. So hold off, save your resources. Don't make any large purchases, I would say. You just spawn all the tokens for Galvin and it took every spin to get it. Well, yeah, obviously. Statistically, that is likely. If you got it in not the last spin, you'd actually be very, very lucky. No, it's because you don't look at the drop rates. If you looked at the drop rates, you'd actually know that you had basically no chance of getting it outside of the last spin. Even just between the A coins and the the pilot in the last two spins, I believe the drop rate, the percentages should have been something around the lines of 70 to 80% to get the A coins, and then only 20% to get the pilot. So even just in those last two, it's very, very unlikely that you would have gotten it. Got Calvin on the second last spin? Yeah, I mean, some people would have, but it's like, you get what I'm saying? Statistically, it's not unlikely to get it on your last spin. It is statistically likely to get it on your last spin. Eclipse nerf after I spend 3 months to get it is diabolical, but if it balances the game, then I don't have a problem with it. Yeah, I don't know. We'll go over it. My personal thoughts on that are that Eclipse doesn't necessarily need a nerf much, if at all. But we'll see. We'll see what they say, if they give any details. But yeah, I mean, that's just echoes for everything that's expensive, though, is the thing. And people want to believe that they're exempt because they spent a lot of their time trying to get something that's expensive, and they think that because they spent that much time that, you know, for whatever reason, it should remain to be the latest and greatest thing ever. It should remain to be the best thing out there. But no, that's not true. People are comparing like the nerfs and whatever with you know, all kinds of different things, like cars and sandwiches and whatever the heck have you. They're saying that like it's nerfing it's unfair because of X, Y, and Z, but nothing holds. Nothing ever that you buy ever in your life will ever permanently hold top tier value. That's a guarantee. So everything loses value at some point. We all know they're not nerfing their glorious King Eclipse. Whoever it is that's in charge of making sure everything's bad against Eclipse, that guy fought like hell to keep that from happening. I don't know if he's gonna make it happen, but yeah. All right. Well, let's see.
Hello everyone, welcome back and welcome to another video here on this channel. Today I've brought along our good friend Pasha once again. As you may remember, Pasha works at Plarium as a game designer for Mech Arena, and today he'll be joining me to talk about some exciting news regarding the meta and the overall gameplay.
I cannot... These are like built into the video, by the way, these German subtitles. And those are not subtitles. Like, I could turn on the English ones, but no, it doesn't do anything. But also, I like the graphics that he puts in his videos.
Stay tuned, this is going to be interesting.
Hello guys, glad to see you. Hello Hypho, thanks for having me.
Yeah.
Nice to see you again.
Hello Pasha, it's great to see you back on the channel after all these months. How have you been?
That was quite a busy month, but yeah, everything's all right, and we've brought some cool news, some information that we'd like to share, and I hope that you guys like it.
Yeah,
Is the meta too status focused, and that's why Eclipse is so good? Potentially, yeah. I don't think, because the stealth aspect of Eclipse I don't think does much to the meta. There are a couple weapons like Gemini and Strike Rocket that will remain to be relatively strong regardless of whether or not they're specifically good against Eclipse, so the stealth aspect doesn't have a lot to do with it. And so at that point you're mostly just left with the the speed, HP, and the immunity to debuffs. The speed and HP, the HP is pretty low. It's worse than almost everything else. That's legendary anyway. The speed is not great. It's worse than like Surge and Nomad. So if I had to guess, it's probably the status effect thing. I think that Surge being as strong as it is necessitates that Eclipse be used always, because Surge is a guaranteed insta-kill against everything except for Eclipse and Deathwalker. And I think that's a big problem. And if they nerfed Surge a bit to make it less of a must-have necessarily, it could still be really good, but it doesn't have to be like the best thing out there. It's ridiculous. Making it less of a must-have would make Eclipse as a counter to be less of a must-have, I think. But we'll see. It depends on how they do it.
Got some really interesting news for our community today. I'm really looking forward to discussing them with you. Yeah, the first topic concerns the meta. It's about to become a more diverse meta. So can you tell us about that? What exactly do you mean by making them?
How come you didn't go over this stuff with you in your interview? I'm guessing, because I didn't know. I didn't know any of this stuff before we went into it. I am guessing that they reached out to Hypho individually. Because, by the way, like, Hypho's essentially, like, followed suit with both of these interviews. Because this is the second one that I did. And, it was... I'm pretty sure it was my own idea. I mean, I was the one who asked for it this time anyway, but I'm pretty sure I was the one who first brought it up. And they thought it was a nice idea, so they just like tried to get other people to go for it as well, and Hypho essentially just followed suit. And that's how he got both of his. But I would guess, because again, going into it, I didn't know, and mine came out relatively recently, I would guess that they reached out to him beforehand, and they were like, hey, we're actually going to do this thing that nobody knows about, but we're going to announce it at this time. So let's have our talk go centered around that. And then you can just upload it after. That's how I would assume it happened. Yeah, but I didn't know until after the conversation itself.
Myth are more diverse,
Mhm.
and what's the reason behind this decision?
Yeah, I think that the second question is even more important, really, because okay, I don't even know where to start from, but let's start with what we have. So we all know that the situation on the like in the game with the with balance of some content is not really okay. We can hear that the players are not really satisfied with, first of all, some content, some weapons and mechs being quite overpowered, let's say frankly. And actually, you don't really have a lot options to choose from if you want to win the game. And
Yeah, that's true.
we've been
Especially
thinking
in
a
terms
bit.
of weapons. This is a thing that I've noticed that I think a lot of people haven't necessarily noticed. Is that like if you want to list all of the top viable mechs, there's about 10 of them, but if you want to list all of the top viable weapons, there's only about 3. Like, you'd be extremely hard pressed to tell me to list me 10 different weapons that are all relatively equal in strength. You'd be extremely hard pressed to list me the top 10 weapons. The first 2 are obvious. You could probably get down to 5, and then after the 5th one, you're like, well, I don't even know if this thing's meta. Because nobody uses it realistically. You can name 10, well, you can name 10 good weapons, but I'm saying, can you name 10 top meta weapons? No, you can't. And just because you can name 10 weapons doesn't mean you're correct either, so. But that's the point. Is, like, you can name 10 really, really viable meta mechs, but you can only name, like, maybe 5 viable meta weapons. So the limiting factor in terms of meta variety is actually weapons. And honestly, it kind of always has been, and it probably always will be. I think that because if you think about it, even if, let's say, even if the mechs had a similar situation to weapons, where there was 2 of them that performed way better than everything else, and then everything else is, like, honestly kind of lackluster compared to that, even if that was the case, you'd still be forced to use 5 different mechs anyway, because you can't use duplicate mechs, right? For weapons, you can. You can triple down on weapons and still be fine. So, yeah, that's kind of a problem.
Quite some time, and we had to come up with some more systematic decision on how to operate these things. And thus, we decided that we would like to create the more diverse and more wide things that would perform quite great.
SF chapters.
There are a couple of ways of how game designers can handle these situations. I'd say there are probably, what I know is more than 10 ways of how you can do it.
Pasha's head needs needs hair. His beard is a nerf. What? No, that beard is glorious, bro. And I think he'd look kind of weird with hair, honestly. With a long. Somebody like, hold on.
But we had to find the solution that would.
Somebody like take my hair and Photoshop it onto his head and see how it would look. I don't know. Yeah, it would look weird. There you go. So somebody's good. It's gonna look weird, I promise.
Be suitable for us. And in order to make this meta diverse, we firstly need to deal with some outliers. And you all guys know them, you Hypho know them as well. So this is the Revokers, and this is the Eclipse and Surge. These guys are being extremely OP for quite some time, and actually, what players do is like put in those two in hangers and put in Revokers on almost on the stuff that they have in the hanger. And of course, this is understandable because if you want to win, you have to use this content. And we decided to fix this situation a little bit, and there would be a couple of things that
will Podgun be nerfed? Or I have no idea. Nobody knows what's going to happen in the future. They'll make an announcement 2 weeks ahead of time. I would say just don't spend any of your resources. Just save up. Remember when Surge was horrible and it had like 18 kph? I low-key really loved using Surge back then because it was challenging but still extremely rewarding, because if you played it right, it was actually pretty good. But yeah, no, I mean, I think mods would have made Surge really strong, even if it didn't get the buff that it got. I think mods would have still made it pretty strong, but I don't know. Will I make a new tier list vid? Yeah, probably. I mean, I may or may not even make like a current tier list video and then make an updated one at some point, just to give people an idea of what currently works and what to look out for.
We'll need to do in order to fix it. First of all, we need to cut down these outliers a little bit to make them more, to make them meet the other content, and to be like more of a contestant for other content, not so overpowered.
Yeah, some people are getting upset that they're nerfing things, and I can understand that for sure. Getting something that you use regularly, having that nerfed is a pain in the ass, but it kind of has to happen. I mean, like, almost every game is going to offer rebalances at some point, and it's not always going to be in your favor. But more than that, it's a matter of like there's literally like a couple things that are overperforming, and they could buff everything up to that level, but that's just a ridiculous statement, and the result ends up being the same anyway. So it's way less work to just nerf the things a little bit. Because again, like, if they buff everything up to the same level, then it's literally the exact same result, except everything has higher numbers. Like, everything has higher HP numbers, higher damage numbers. It's the same result from a practical standpoint. Everything's mechanically the same. Everything works the same in comparison. But yeah, it's just like there's just a buff label next to everything else as opposed to a nerf label next to a couple other things. It's easier to just nerf the couple things, is what I'm trying to say. And that's what they've opted for. They could have done either one, but I don't really blame them in this case.
Probably we'll fix... Not probably, we're actually doing it. We're fixing Revokers, Eclipse, and Surge a little bit. But before you all guys get like...
Imagine they nerf Surge to a decent mech and they make Frost a Surge 2.0. That would actually really suck. But I don't think Frost is going to have a dash ability, and dash abilities are most specifically what makes Surge really strong. Like, the dash is essentially what makes Surge different from Zephyr, right? Like, Zephyr's not that good. If they removed the dash from Surge, Surge would be kind of crap. And that's what sounds like Frost is going to be, but you might be right. And if that is what ends up happening, then I'm not going to enjoy that. But that's just power creep, right? That's essentially what a lot of people advocate for. When they say don't nerf XYZ, what they're really saying is in order to change the meta, you should just release stuff that's really broken. Even more broken than what's already out there. Like, the meta is going to change somehow. It's just a matter of whether it's done by egregious pay-to-win power creep or done by a couple nerfs. And most people are going to opt for a couple nerfs, I'm just going to say.
Like, super frightened about what's going on. We don't really want to make this content unplayable. Believe us, because we did this content. Some of them I did like with my own hands, and I like it a lot. And it's not about that we would like to like make it like completely unplayable, or like in some way devaluate your investment in this content. What we actually want to do is make them like make them able to compete with other content on the same level. So, but in this regards, we would also need to put some really massive buffs upon lots of other content in the game.
Yes, a lot of much needed buffs. And I mean, like, he's making it clear, right? And Hypho's obviously making it clear. Their goal is to make sure that even after they nerf something, that it's still usable, it's still good. Just because that's their goal does not mean that that's actually going to happen, though, right? That just because they say that they want it to happen doesn't mean it's going to happen. My guess is, let's be real, my guess is they did not purposely nerf Disk Launcher and ArcTorrent into the ground. My guess is they thought these things are kind of overperforming. We're going to nerf them a bit, and they'll remain to be used. Which Disk Launcher was still used in early game and is still used in early game to a relatively decent effect, but it's not even remotely as good as it was, and it's on the lower end of things in terms of performance. So, based on those adjustments, they very well could be over nerfing things, but I think they're, to their credit, and from the adjustments that I've seen, like we've all seen the Revoker nerf, right? And we all can all mutually come to an agreement that that's not going to change anything. Revoker is going to very clearly still remain to be the top weapon, at least until they decide to nerf it again, if they do. But that's actually a good sign that they're opting to under-nerf things as opposed to over-nerf things. That means that they're taking it in smaller steps, as opposed to what they did with Disk Launcher, which essentially killed it. Can you ping for the Pasha with my hair? Yeah, go for it. People need to chill. They're not going to nerf all the best mechs and buff the worst ones. It doesn't make sense. I mean, they might. I think that they're going to nerf some of the top mechs, and they're going to buff a lot of the worst ones. That does not necessarily mean that they're going to swap places, though, right? Just because something got a nerf does not mean that it's therefore worse than everything that didn't get a nerf. No. Revoker is going to get a nerf, and it's going to still be the top weapon. It's just that it's slightly less of a top weapon. That's the difference here. And I think a lot of things are going to get a buff, and they're still going to be bad by comparison. But the goal is essentially, from what they're saying anyway, the goal is to like shrink the gap between something like Revoker and something like Hellfire, which are like both legendary weapons technically, but they're like one of them's absolutely garbage.
Which is a really great news. And both these factors will make
so unfair for free-to-play because you just got Surge. Well, I think it's unrealistic for you to assume that because something is meta for some amount of time that it should stay meta. I mean, very clearly, if you've played any game ever in your life, most likely the top meta item has not stayed the top meta item for the entirety of the game's lifespan. And that's just an unrealistic expectation born out of wishful thinking. And I think at the end of the day, you wouldn't necessarily want Surge to be OP for the rest of your lifetime either. But from what I understand, not only will Surge remain to be pretty good, but also due to like the system that they're saying is going to change up the meta every month, which I still think is way too often. Every month is way too often. But they want to change up the meta every month or so, which should theoretically allow a lot of things to have their time in the meta all over again. So like you know, your Surge would still be top meta every so often, and it would be not top meta every so often. That's just essentially the system that they've opted for. I'm not saying that it's a good system, but that's the system that they've opted for. In terms of buffs and nerfs, I mean, I think we can all agree if something is the top meta, if everyone agrees that something is really, really overpowered, then probably it needs a nerf from a balance perspective. So, you know, if you care about game balance at all, then yeah, you'd probably agree that it needs a nerf.
The
Juggalo.
number of choices that players have to...
How many weapons have gotten a nerf into crap? Now, only one. Disc Launcher. Arc Torrent got a nerf, but it was already bad. Personally, like, they made it worse, obviously, but I personally think it was already bad. Everything else, they've nerfed a couple other things, but those things that they nerfed weren't... They didn't just suddenly become really bad. They stayed really good. Buy a new hanger every month. Yeah, I mean, like, I don't agree with that either. But I think, I mean, in that case, you have to just let go of the idea of being top meta unless you're an absolute pay-to-win whale. That's what I think. I mean, like, for someone like me on my free-to-play account, I didn't have a top meta hanger for that SP anyway, so it doesn't really matter. But that was never the point, right? Like, if you can't win unless you have the absolute top meta stuff, then there's a different problem to be had there. But it definitely does. It's kind of a kick in the balls for competitive people who explicitly want to play top level competitive games. That's yeah, it's pretty bad. I don't agree with that.
That players have, like, when they're choosing what to put on their hanger, will increase dramatically.
Okay.
Yeah. That's just in a couple of words, but we'll probably dig deeper into some of the details.
Okay. So you've decided to focus more on buffs.
Is the meta going to always be centered around legendaries? Yeah, probably. Legendaries, I mean, it's the top tier, right? Like, they're the most expensive. They have the highest stats. It just makes sense that those are going to be the ones with the highest likelihood of being good. Now, I mean, the meta at one point was centered mostly around Aegis, actually, after Aegis got the rework. Anything could happen, but I think it's most likely that the legendaries are going to take the spotlight in pretty much every scenario, yeah. Which is why we need a legendary repricing. What about Guardy? I don't think they're going to touch anything that's not legendary. I think the epic stuff into lower, I doubt they're going to touch it at all, and if they do, it's almost definitely going to be a buff. Like, they might buff Cheetah or something, right? But I kind of doubt that they're going to do it. Do you think they'll nerf Vortex? No, Vortex isn't even that good. Nerf or buff Pilots? Potentially, but I kind of doubt it. Well, I think it's a pretty low chance that they nerf or that they change Pilots, at least for a long time. They're going to be changing mods, I think, at some point. If they nerf Surge, do you think it'll still be meta? Yeah, I think it'll still be meta. I think so. Because they'd have to nerf it by a lot. The EMP status effect is basically a free kill. Even if they nerf it from 4 seconds down to 3, I think it'll still be pretty much a free kill on most things. Revoker is still going to be really good. The dash aspect of the mech itself is basically, it's a really easy way to get from point A to point B to close distance with something that's really, really strong like Revoker. So it's definitely going to still be meta after this upcoming nerf for Revoker. Once they nerf it depends on how they do it. It depends on how they do it, but I imagine it'll still be meta.
Rather than nerfs?
Yeah, exactly.
That's great, and yeah, it sounds very, very promising, to be honest. But what was your motivation for focusing more on buffs in the first place?
Motivation, bro. It's because there are
Actually,
8
I think
billion
that
bad
we
weapons and
don't
like
have
2 good ones.
that much of an overpowered outliers on the like higher end of the meta. It's basically these things that I've mentioned. I think that if Revoker, Surge, and Eclipse will be less effective, there will be a lot of other options to counter them and to play around. And plus, we're adding some more weapons and mechs. Some of them have been released like some really, really long time ago. For example, I've always dreamed of like slightly improving
The way that he said that really makes it sound like they're nerfing Surge and Eclipse to make room for Frost to be the top tier legendary scout. I don't necessarily know if that's what he meant, but the way that I just will say that the way that he said it definitely you could interpret it that way, and I don't think you'd be wrong for that.
Gate Crusher because it was one of the first mechs that I have done like on this position working on the content. And when I was working on them and on Gate Crusher, and when we released it, some time has passed, and I'm like, well, this projectile speed when he shoots his like iron blast thing is really not that high, and it's not very convenient to shoot from the long distances. And I was living with this for like a couple of years, and now I have a chance to make the Gate Crusher great. And
Great
yeah,
Crasher.
so probably
Absolutely needed, by the way. Gate Crasher's really bad. It used to be. It's so fun. Bro, okay. Now, a lot of you guys probably don't have Gate Crasher because it's super stupid expensive, and that's completely fair. There is no better feeling in the entire world than shooting a Gatecrasher ion pod, having it punch through a wall, and killing somebody on the other side. It is the absolute pinnacle of gameplay experience. It's just if they get rid of any aspect of that, I'm gonna be so mad, bro. It's really hard to do nowadays because everything has mods and way too much HP, and the ability just doesn't do that much damage. But it's the greatest feeling in the world. The first thing they should have done is rework the mods. Yeah, and I told them that. Yeah, for sure. So I think the mods rework first off determines what the new meta is, and then you buff the stuff that's really bad, and then you have a better idea of what's still overperforming, if anything. They should have done all, and this goes for mechs and weapons, by the way. They should have done those two things before even thinking about nerfing stuff. Doing all of the weapon rebalancing first and then changing it again when they rework the mods, that's going to be a problem. It's going to be a problem for later though. So I guess they just decided that it's not worth, like, they're just going to do it this way because it's easier. I don't know. Make a Gatecrasher ability pierce through mods. Yeah, I agree. At very least, you should have like a stasis effect or something just to keep people inside the beam for a little longer.
Yeah, there are a lot of content that,
Also, this little
we're going
overlay
to
thing,
buff,
it
and it will
was
be
fun
some
at first, but I'm
really
kinda over
cool
it by now.
buffs.
Like, how many minutes?
I can probably, if you have something in mind, you can ask me about what's about to change, because there's so a lot of them that I don't even know what to start with. I think there will be like 4 times more buffs than nerfs, something like that.
Yeah, 4 to 1.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, and to get back to the topic of nerfs for a moment, you've mentioned that nerfs will be handled in smaller, more gradual steps from now on. Why take that approach? Why smaller changes instead of bigger sweeping adjustments?
We actually just wanted to not to make such dramatic changes with
So his question was essentially, why didn't you nerf stuff into the ground? I feel like the answer to that is kind of obvious.
When taking like some stats off to let players get used to it a little bit, and yeah, basically to avoid the feeling that like everything's getting like much worse, which in fact is not. So we just decided like
Pasha has so many things bouncing in his head. So I mean, he's from Ukraine, so he doesn't like natively speak English. He speaks English really well, but this isn't like his primary language, right? So that's the reason that he's taking a little bit longer. Even when I talk to him, it's like sometimes he's fishing for a word, but he doesn't really know what the word is in English sometimes. Or he just like forgets what it is. He knows the word, but he doesn't. He kind of forgets it. That's understandable, yeah.
to balance these things to make smaller portions of nerfs and the bigger portions of buffs, which should like be more pleasant and should be more like okay with the players.
Yeah, I appreciate that. So yeah, since we're already informing the community about these changes, that means you've already been working quite extensively on diversifying the meta. What kind of player feedback or data did you use as a foundation for designing these changes?
Your videos, other content creators' videos, posts on the forum, like basically everything that community is like given to us every.
Yeah. So anybody who's gonna be like, bro, this is RuFFles' fault because RuFFles constantly complains about X, Y, and Z. You're welcome. Go ahead, blame it on me. I'll take credit.
Players' feedback. I mean, like, not like each one of them, but each source of the players' feedback that we can work with. In-game chats, forums, comments, tickets, everything that we have. We've gathered and analyzed it for quite some time. Plus, of course, we were looking at our like internal analytics where we see what weapons or mechs are the players playing on.
Yeah, like so they have analytics on everything, so they know how often things get kills, how often things get MVPs. They know how often people use certain X like whatever weapons and mechs. So they have the data on how good stuff is. They're not just going by feedback. At least I'd hope that they're not. Sometimes they should though. Imagine how funny it'd be if Hellfire was even more cracked than Revoker. Honestly, it'd be kind of based though, like, because the thing with like Hellfire, for example, is that it has the inherent downside of at some point it runs out of ammo, and it has a really long reload time. Revoker literally never has that problem. So even if Hellfire was the better weapon overall, there would be a very obvious and clear way of countering it simply by waiting until it's out of ammo. It can't fire for like a solid 8 to 10 seconds. RuFFles will be happy if Killshot's meta. He just gets to kill it more. Yeah, see? Big brain. This guy gets it. What do I like more, Surgery Eclipse? Personal preference? I don't like either of them. Which one do I think is more OP? I think Surge is more OP. Minigun the best weapon for Eclipse besides Revoker? I think probably.
What's the MVP rates, kill death rates for these weapons? How many of you guys like pick them into battle, upgrade them, and stuff like that? There were lots and lots of data. Both these sources helped us to like identify the outliers, which are like super OP, which actually everyone already knew, and it actually helped us to buff some really cool content, which has a really nice potential in the game. Like, for example, I know Mimicker Mech which is kind of very interesting to play, but sometimes it lacks his like survivability.
Is OP and best mech different? No. It's just a general point of contention where some people think Surge is better, some people think Eclipse is better. For a while, I thought Surge was better, and then I changed my mind. I was like, actually, I think Eclipse is probably better. And I've recently kind of changed my mind back to I think Surge is better. The point is essentially that they're extremely close, and that like splitting hairs between them is not really a big deal. You're not gonna. I mean, the way the game was, they may or may not get nerfs. So I don't know what's gonna happen after that. But as the game is right now, you're not gonna regret having either one of them, right? So you could see, even if Eclipse was like technically better, you could get Surge, and it's not going to be like, oh, I so regret not getting Eclipse. Like, no, it's still stupidly broken. I think Surge is better though, simply because the like 3 of the most popular mechs, and this was after I watched BMP's video on like the Scout Trio rock paper scissors thing. I realized that between the 3, and these are all extremely popular mechs, Surge, Eclipse, Nomad, 3 of the most popular mechs in any stage of the game. Extremely, extremely strong, all of them, right? But there's benefits and downsides to all of them, except for Surge, because Surge will just full-on beat a Nomad every time. It will 50% of the time beat another Surge, because it's like 50-50. And it will 50% of the time beat an Eclipse, because Eclipse doesn't technically have an advantage over a Surge. It just keeps the Surge from having an advantage over it. It just keeps it from being an insta-kill, right? So Eclipse is really a really safe choice if you want like free-for-all, for example, but I think even Surge is just really good. It's like guaranteed to be overall better than Eclipse, I feel like.
So we slightly worked on that thing, or yeah, I think that's the answer. That's it.
Okay, that sounds like you really put a lot of thought into not just the game, the changes themselves, but also into how to approach them.
Yeah, exactly, because it would be really strange if we would just would like to make this and this to up them, to buff them, and yeah. So actually, we were looking at the data from all the sources that we have. So thank you guys a lot for passing this feedback to us, and we're kind of a little bit sorry that it took so much time to actually get to fixing this issue, but we're here, so
yeah.
let's go. Let's go.
Okay, but in the past,
do you have Eclipse now and waiting for free-for-all to run around like a brain-dead person? Yeah, okay, so that's why everybody's always complaining that free-for-all's not in the... Like, whenever free-for-all's taken out of the tournament cycle, people always get upset because they want to just be able to run around like a brain-dead person. Is that what's going on? Make Eclipse actually turn invisible, but always appear on radar. That would be kind of cool. There'd be cool ways of doing, like, invisibility things. I almost feel like invisibility is, like, maybe a little bit too strong, though, and they couldn't make a mech that's that fast. Like, if it's invisible, like, full-on invisible, I don't know if they could afford to make it that fast. Otherwise, it'd just be, like, straight-up broken. You know? I don't know. I don't know. I talked to him about it, and they don't really have plans of making an invisibility mech again.
Certain rebalancing decisions have caused some weapons or mechs to become noticeably weaker. For example, Tengu or Zephyr or mechs like that. In some cases, it even felt like certain equipment was no longer playable at all. How do you plan to avoid that happening again as part of this meta diversification?
So the thing is that like the updates that changed those things to make them not strong anymore was the grade update, which just inherently made low tier stuff bad. So I think it's a weird argument to say like this low tier stuff is not top meta anymore. Well, like that's kind of the point. So and I don't think they ever plan on making low tier stuff top meta again. So I'm not really sure. I'm not really sure what this question's really getting at, but maybe we'll see.
Well, I guess that's one and a half thing to consider here. First of all, we're more careful with the nerfs right now, and we're carefully play testing the changes.
Carefully playtesting. I mean, like the problem with them playtesting changes. It's the same problem as what's always been the case. It's the fact that there's only like 10 or 20 of them playtesting it, as opposed to the hundreds of thousands of players playtesting it. And there could be an issue with it that, 10 to 20 of them, it would take them hours and hours and hours to find it, and they just simply don't have that much time to be putting onto playtesting, right? Like it could take 100 hours for them to find one specific really breaking point for a new mech or a new weapon. It could take them a really long time to find that. Whereas the general player base could find it a lot quicker. So I think, regardless of how carefully they playtest things, there's going to be problems, is essentially what I'm trying to say. Every so often, there's going to be some kind of problem with it. Are the subtitles in German? Yeah, but those are, built into the video. I can turn on my English subtitles that YouTube has, but these are, baked into the video. This is something that Hypho himself added.
We take some stats off and we get into battle and see if you can still be effective with this content. In some ways, I would say that the gameplay changes, but it doesn't really mean that that it becomes unplayable. For example, let's say if
some things need to be changed in terms of gameplay.
If Eclipse has to be walking in his stealth not so long as it does now, it doesn't mean that it's getting super ineffective or weaker. It's more about that you will need to manage the timings better, and you won't be able just to go in stealth, run through the whole map, get 3-4 kills, and that's it, and get the MVP. You'll probably need to.
So what he's talking about now is if they made the duration shorter, which I don't know if that's what they're actually planning on doing in terms of a nerf for Eclipse, but it sounds like it's on the table. To be honest, I think, and the thing that gameplay wise, because he's talking about gameplay and how you use it, the thing that distinguishes Eclipse from Shadow, for example, is that Shadow you actually have to use the stealth and be sneaky. Eclipse you don't. You are actively encouraged as an Eclipse to run literally straight headfirst into people. Whereas Shadow, you have to be as sneaky as possible. And I think if there were a way for them to change Eclipse to where it would have to be a bit sneakier, I think that would be a lot better. Even if they could increase the ability duration, I don't care. I just think the sneaky playstyle is essentially what it was built for, and if it's playing more as just an in-your-face brawler instead, then that's kind of not probably should not really be the case. Also, a lot of abilities are too strong because they also benefit from stats, like the speed for search. Yeah, I mean, certain things, like certain weapons are strong because of certain mechs. Certain mechs are strong because of certain weapons. Certain mechs are not strong because of the way that mods currently work, which is another great reason as to why mods should have been changed first, Because let's say they do buff Gatecrasher or Onyx or something like that, and then it becomes like a one-tap killing machine. I don't know. A lot of, I think mods is what definitely made a lot of things really weak. A lot of mech abilities really weak. Same thing with weapons. But then other ones are, yeah, it's essentially just like a, yeah, it's like the pairing of like a specific mech with a specific weapon. And some other things are strong simply because they're good against other things that are also currently strong. Like I think Eclipse is, I mean, Eclipse is mostly used because it works with Revoker. If they made Revoker a bit worse and they made the range on Revoker a bit worse, then I think Revoker Eclipse specifically would probably fall off a bit. Because I am of the belief that Eclipse just barely is fast enough to be able to use Revokers well. They could even nerf Eclipse's speed slightly. But apart from that, Eclipse is mostly used just because everyone's using Surge, and if everyone's using Surge, then you need some way of surviving it, right? So, and I'm not even against that. I actually think that Eclipse should be more of a direct counter to Surge. They should reduce Surge's HP or maybe even buff Eclipse's HP slightly. They could buff Eclipse's HP slightly, but make it slightly slower so that it's less of a Revoker killing machine, but it's more of a direct counter to Surge.
To like get into stealth, fight one or two mechs, get to safety, and really rely on the timings. So yeah, we'll be stealther, but not the like invisible killing machine.
So everything you do is very carefully. Okay.
Yeah. That's the first thing, and secondly, we pair it with the new content that we put buffs on, and we actually also look at the numbers on time to kill and how on the damage out.
They look at the numbers except for on Quasher, which has all the wrong numbers still. By the way, I don't want to cover, so whenever a new Quasher weapon comes out, I don't want to cover any of those weapons until they fix the numbers, bro. Because I think it's just wrong. I think it's just wrong, and I'm very much considering just straight up refusing to cover any of those energy variants on like when a new one drops on stream or something, or in a video. Just period until they fix those numbers, because those need to be fixed. It's completely ridiculous.
Put on some like usefulness of some particular mechs or
They should lower the
weapons.
number of layers for mods, yeah.
And yeah,
everyone's.
I think that pretty much that's it. But
even Pasha's in general agreement with that, but he thinks that they're gonna first make them more accessible. They're gonna make it so that you can put it on lower rank mechs, like bring it back to rank 3. They're also gonna make them probably cheaper, possibly make it so you can get more mod parts. I don't know. But generally it's gonna be like he generally agrees with that statement, but he thinks that they're going to start by making them more accessible first, which I don't think is going to help anything, obviously, but yeah, I think that they should start off by making the mods, like by changing the way that the mods work. That's what they should do, but whatever. It's not my game, right? Like I can say what I think, but at the end of the day, I'm not in charge. The bot muted you for pinging? The bot doesn't mute people for pinging. I see your picture, by the way. It's right here. It's probably, so it probably wasn't a bot. I'll just unmute you, sir. My guess is it was one of the mods saw that you pinged. Hold on. Howie, what we thinking, fellas? What we thinking? Should go like right. Yeah.
That's it.
Okay, okay. So, let's talk about the next spring.
Yeah.
Next spring there is something like new seasons, I heard,
Exactly.
which will include this more diversified meta. Can you tell us a bit more about these upcoming seasons in general? What will it look like? And yeah,
Yeah.
what does this means for the community? Or in other words, what can players look forward to when the season starts in spring?
I would be really happy to tell you guys about that. Uh, and that is actually the answer to your like initial questions of why are we doing these rebalances and why do we need to like fix the situations on the server with the balance. And the answer is the seasons.
Curious what they have to say about
All
this.
these rebalances that we were talking about will probably need to take place before the season starts, so you can expect them to like go live pretty soon. And
He's talking about the new seasons as if like it's something different. It sounded what I understood it as was literally just like a hey, so every season, which by the way, every season is like when the battle pass starts. And like for every new battle pass essentially, yeah. So that's the season. Same thing with like the season divisions and whatever, right? Literally just a month. And the big thing that they're talking about in terms of regular meta shifting is literally just modifiers. So I don't understand why he's really talking about it like it's something completely new and completely different, but it sounds like it's literally the same as what we've always had.
there will be some releases of these rebalances. We'll give you like some groups of content that are getting buffs, and some small nerfs to the things that we already talked about. And when the situation with the balance is fixed, we're ready to launch our new approach to handling the meta. And not only meta, actually, the way that we distribute the content will change.
The way that they distribute.
Yeah.
No, hold on. This was brushed over. I don't know if Hypho is going to say something about this. The way that they distribute the content. Hold on. So, this could be a complete gear hub overhaul. So, the gear hub itself could be changing. He doesn't say new content. He doesn't say the way that they distribute new content in the form of like crate rushes and whatever, which obviously those are garbage too. If they changed that, that's fine. But it sounds like potentially like the gear hub itself entirely could be very different. Took long enough. Gear hub is terrible right now. I appreciate their attempt, but yeah, it's a rather undesirable system that forces you to buy certain things that you don't want in order to progress to the next tier. I guess over time I've sort of just accepted it for what it is, but yeah, it's not ideal, that's for sure. Discs were not nerfed directly, but got hit when they fixed the side damage bug. Well, that's just straight up not true. Discs were nerfed directly. The nerf that they received is a nerf that I actually directly covered on my channel in a dedicated video. So they nerfed the damage outside of optimal range. So it had a lot higher damage fall off outside of optimal range, being 60. And on top of that, they also removed the capacity for it to deal side and back damage. That wasn't a bug. It wasn't a side damage bug. It was literally just that weapon's radius, specifically that weapon. That's the only weapon. That weapon's radius cannot deal side or back damage. And also, they made the radius have damage fall off. The radius itself has damage fall off. So after, I believe, over 5 meters, it starts to lose a rather significant amount of its damage output. I personally think all radius weapons should have radius fall off. I think that's a great mechanic. It makes it less. It makes the radius aspect of things a little less stupid, and it allows you to create weapons with really large radiuses without them being super broken. But no, that is what they did to nerf it. The reason it became not meta, I think, is myself personally, I think, is mostly because of mods. I think mods are mostly what killed the weapon's performance overall. Because it was still okay. It was still pretty decent, even after the nerf. It was still pretty decent. But it was not. After they introduced mods, it became really bad.
So we would want to come to the 3 months seasons, so there will be 4 seasons in the year, just like with the weather stuff, like winter, spring, and so on. Yeah, 3 months will probably lower the number of content that we're releasing.
They could nerf anything to the depths of black holes, but just give more ways to earn A coins. I mean, I'm kind of behind that. And I think that's another reason why the monthly meta changing is a really bad idea, because it's just way too hard to get stuff. Now, maybe that's part of what he means by changing the way that they distribute content. Maybe they're going to make it a little easier to get stuff. Maybe, I don't know. It would be great if it was more of a progression system and less of a purchase system, where, now, I'm not going to say similar to the progress path, the old progress path that some people will remember. Some of you have no idea what I'm talking about. But the progress path after you unlocked something, you still had to buy it. But I think something more similar to that, where it's like after you unlock it, you literally just have it. You don't have to buy it after unlocking it. That is a system that I greatly prefer. That is a system I would greatly prefer. I don't think they're going to do that, because that would be like the majority of their profits gone, probably. But yeah, whatever. I would prefer that, right?
Because we don't really see that there's the necessity of having like so much.
Too. Every radius, like I said, every radius weapon and ability to, every single radius-based aspect of the game should have damage fall off. It doesn't have to be crazy. I think they went a little too far with the fall off on Disc Launcher. So if they made it a little less egregious, then that's fine. I don't really care. But I think every single radius, anything, should have damage fall off on the radius.
Content, but don't panic. Each new season, the players will have a new mech and a new weapon, with different necessity of
what?
Because we don't really see that there's the necessity of having so much content, but don't panic. Each new season, the players will have a new mech and a new weapon, with different unique mechanics.
I think he's trying to say that every season they're going to make a new weapon, a new mech and a new weapon. I don't think he's actually saying that everyone's going to just get it for free. I don't think that's what he's trying to say. 90-day season is what he's saying? I must have missed that. I do like that. 90-day season is much better.
New approach to handling the meta, and not only meta, actually, the way that we distribute the content will change. Yeah, so we would want to come to the 3 months seasons, so there will be 4 seasons in the year, just like with the weather stuff, like winter, spring, and so on. Yeah, 3 months will probably lower the number of content that we're releasing, because we don't really see that there's the necessity of having so much content, but don't panic. Each new with like different unique mechanics. So we're like slowing down with the content, because I think the reason behind that is probably we also need to tell you is that I don't see why players would need that much different mechanics, because they have already a lot of them right now, and will probably need to think of why do players need to have this new content, and that would be that.
I think that in terms of mechs, a lot of their bases are covered. I think what would I don't think that the game necessarily needs, and he's correct to some extent. This is just my 2 cents. I think this is kind of like what Warrobots does. Like Warrobots has a crap ton of weapons and a crap ton of robots, right? And it's really cool. And I think part of what makes it nice is that there are mechs and weapons that are very similar to each other, but they're not quite the exact same. So weapons with similar mechanics, but with different, like they have different pros and cons, right? The difference between, I guess, like minigun and overdriver, I think, are two very nice, extremely similar weapons, but they have there's a little bit of pros and cons between each one. And I think that's good. And if there were more weapons like that, then I think people could actually make conscious decisions based on what they want, as opposed to this weapon is the only one that does the thing that I wanted, like the only one that does even close to the thing that I want it to do. And therefore, I have to use this weapon. So that, yeah. I think more, and the same goes for mechs, like, if they were going to add anything, I don't think we necessarily need any completely new off the rails, totally 100% unique mechanics. I think we need stuff that's just like variations of what's already in the game. The meta vibe in Warrobots is money, money, money. Well, yeah, but that doesn't mean that everything that Warrobots does is bad, right? Like, obviously, their money system, and this is why nerfs are good, because the only way, because here's the thing. They need to rebalance the game at some point. They can't have the meta be the exact same for an infinite amount of time. That was never going to happen. That was never on the table. It was never even a possibility, right? The meta is going to change, and the devs are going to make sure of that somehow. Now, Warrobots does a lot of rebalancing as well, but what a lot of what they do is every single new thing that they make, basically, almost every single new thing that they make is mega overpowered until they nerf it. So it's mega overpowered. It's pay to win power creep, essentially, right? Where it's like you have to have the latest mech and weapon, because if you don't have the latest mech and weapon, then you're just at a strict disadvantage, because those are the best things. The newest stuff is always the best stuff. And they're not doing that. Mech Arena is not doing that, and I appreciate that. But if they want to change the meta while not having pay-to-win power creep, they have to be nerfing stuff at some point. They have to make nerf buff rebalances at some point. Otherwise, the meta is never going to change. Well, otherwise, the only way for the meta to change is by pay-to-win power creep, right? And I don't think anybody wants that. I think nerfing and buffing things is just better for everybody, to be honest.
Task that we would be working on after the season's release, I guess. So,
but yeah, like, Warrobots does some things well, though, right? It was essentially the point that I was originally making. Warrobots does some things really well, and obviously Warrobots is more popular than Mech Arena for some reason. So, like, why is that? I think a large part of it is, I mean, the aesthetics for one thing, but I think a large part of it is also just the amount of variety that you have. You can make a whole lot of different things and really make it to exactly what you want it to be, as opposed to in Mech Arena, where it's like, I want a bullet spray weapon, and Overdriver is the only good one, so I'm going with Overdriver. Like, that's what kind of option is that? So,
and I think that the most important thing about seasons is that things that I mentioned, the operate and the meta. We will I think that we can think of it as of a server boost. So this new content that will be released in the new season, a new mech and a new weapon, they will be by default slightly server boosted. I don't know on what like percents. We're still testing it. I think it will be
What
just
is that?
slightly better, not to make it like it's not the difference of reworkers versus I don't know like
So he is saying that they're purposely going to try to make it stronger. I don't like the sound of that, but we'll see what happens.
overdrivers or repeaters right now. It's more like a overdriver versus Oracle. I don't know, probably like 5-10% higher, like or better, let's
They're gonna
say.
try to purposely make
So that's the
Frost a
first
little
thing.
bit OP.
Then we'll have some of the existing content that we have in the game. Let's say, I don't know, miniguns or overdrivers. And they
So, okay. I think what he's trying to get at is that they're gonna make a new mech and a new weapon every season, and when the season starts, the new stuff is going to be the some of the boosted stuff, some of the current meta. Like he said, that the meta is going to change every couple months, every season, which in this case would be every 3 months because they're going to increase the season time. So every 3 months, the meta is going to change, and it's going to change partially, not entirely, but partially to favor the new stuff. I don't like that. They're going to do what they're going to do. I'm not really surprised that they're doing it. I don't necessarily like that, though. But we'll see. That's what it sounds like they're doing. And that sounds like power creep. That sounds like pay to win power creep, which is exactly what I don't want them to do. Warrobots looks more real. Oh yeah. Both are good, but I prefer Warrobots aesthetic. Same, bro. Same, bro. I'd be playing Warrobots Frontiers a lot more, but I had to uninstall it because whatever, it's some random update. I wasn't able to. Bro, if you played Frontiers, I don't know if you're on PC. Such a nice looking game. I remember Gangster Jabs doing an ability tier list, and the best ability according to him was Orion. You think I should do another one for You think I should do one for abilities? It's not a bad idea, but I think a lot of people, they'd take the ability and they'd say like, if X ability is the best ability, they just assume that that is also the best mech, right? I think a lot of people would take that out of context to mean something that it doesn't mean. I will think about it, though. It's definitely an interesting idea. Do you think they also need to put new classes? Yeah. Well, I think there's 5 mech slots, and I think that they should at very least have 5 different mech classes.
will also receive this season buff for these 3 months. And after the season ends, these contents that have been in this season will like lose its server boost, so it will lose like 5-10% of their effectiveness. And
Again, I don't like this idea.
in the new content, the new season will like operate the same way. The new content will
He's
be
explaining
slightly server boosted, and
how they're
some
going to do
other
pay-to-win power creep,
content
essentially.
that in the previous seasons, but existing
Except it's
content.
not power creep. They're just saying that like this thing is going to, when it's new, be it's like giving a 50% damage modifier to a new weapon for 3 months. And it's really, really super strong for 3 months, but then after the modifier's gone, it's just not strong anymore. Or not as strong. It could still be good. I mean, he's saying like 10-15%. Like his idea is that it's not going to be that much, but I still don't like the idea in concept. In concept, it's going to cause people to have to buy strictly new stuff occasionally just to be able to compete with top. I don't like this idea. Again, I'm not necessarily surprised that they're doing it, but yeah, I don't like that idea.
the game will also receive some server boosts. Will be both mechs and weapons, but will be like several of them, not too much. Like I know a couple.
So
Let's say.
So it's a little bit like the modifiers.
Yeah, like the modifiers exactly, but they will be longer for 3 months, and the whole idea.
So modifiers are going to be separate from what he's calling server boost, which it's not going to be what it's actually called. That makes me think of Discord, but which by the way, in terms of server boosting, hold on, I'm pretty sure there's still a thing in the Mech Arena official Discord where if you boost if you send a server boost, which costs some money, if you boost the official server, they'll let you pick a legendary skin of your choice, which is kind of a gamer move on their part. So if you really wanted a legendary skin, I'm pretty sure that's a cheap way of getting it. But anyway, back on topic. So he's saying that it's not going to be modifiers specifically, but it's going to be a system similar to modifiers that essentially just lasts for longer and potentially doesn't do it by as much. Like modifiers are currently like 50% for pretty much everything. He's saying that's going to be more like 10 to 15%. So maybe that is what ends up happening. But I still don't like the idea of immediately making the new stuff stronger than it should be, because then you don't actually know how strong that thing is once the server boost ends. Is it still strong after that point? I don't know. Potentially not. Kind of cringe. 20 to 50%. Yeah, well, it used to be mostly 20%, but now it's crept up to 50% for everything. Like, look at the modifier schedule right now. I'm pretty sure every single one of the things in there is 50%. You got Mina and Galvin from Great Rushes? Nice. The whole pay-to-win thing is what made you quit Warbots? Yeah. And we might have a similar situation here. From what he's saying is that it doesn't sound like it's going to be that bad. So, like, if something is overperforming, it's only going to be by a little bit. But even still, I think in concept, I don't care if it's 1%. In concept, I don't like the idea, because it's bound to be problematic at least at one point.
Was to create the different environment inside the season, so that each 3 months, like when you enter the game, you see that something have changed. The new content is like more playable, more good, and something like that.
Okay, great. Sounds very promising.
Yeah, we really hope so, because
it sounds very promising for someone like us who's going to get the new stuff anyway. But the problem is that, I mean, especially I'm not going to say specifically for free-to-play players, like free-to-play players, whatever. Not everything has to be under the guise of free-to-play, or under the lens of free-to-play. But even for paying players, and I think this actually affects paying players more than free-to-play players, to be honest, because free-to-play players are probably not going to be top-level competitive regardless. But the top-level players, pretty much all they have is competitive custom matches. And I've said this before, like, when you're really high SP, you literally just fight bots and that's it. If you want to play the game at all, if you want to have fun, the only option that you really have is competitive custom matches, or just custom matches in general, which end up devolving into competitive custom matches at some point or another. Like, even if you start off with just like, oh, it's just for fun, somebody was going to show up with some really sweaty hanger, and in order to beat them, you're going to have to also use your really sweaty hanger, etc. You get what I'm saying? It's going to devolve into a meta custom match. And, and so the high-level people are typically very, very competitive, because that's just how they have fun. But in order for them to actually compete, they'd have to get the new stuff every single time, and that's pretty cringe. That's very cringe. Well, okay, I shouldn't say that they're going to have to get the new stuff every time. They may or may not. They're more likely to have to get the new stuff every time, is what I guess I should say. I don't like it either way.
Probably lead to changing strategies, how the players play during this season, from season to season.
Mm-hmm.
So that's our main goal to achieve.
Yeah, it's a great idea. I think not. I think I'm not just speaking for myself, but for many other players as well. When I say that we are really excited about what's coming, and yeah, I can't wait to see it all in action. To be honest.
Thank you.
I'm excited for
Hopefully
meta
this
shifts. Yeah. And I'm really glad, by the way, to hear that it's going to be every 3 months as opposed to every month. Every month is way too often. 3 months is still probably a little bit much, but so long as it's not a ton, because he is saying that it's going to be like 10 to 15%, which if that's just the extent of it, where they're just going to buff a couple things by 10 to 15% every season, then that's probably not going to change the meta a whole lot. It's going to shift it slightly, but it's probably not going to change much. So in that case, even free-to-play players, like you're most likely not going to have to buy anything different every season, but I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know what's going to, and it depends on what they're buffing. Depends on what it is. I will obviously be there to help all of you free-to-play gamers out. I'll be doing my best to make sure I'm keeping up with what's the current best thing every season, just to let you guys know what you should and shouldn't get. But I don't know. It could potentially make things a lot more complicated. There's definitely some potential downsides with it. I'm cautiously optimistic, but he did mention, and it's another thing again, a thing that Hypho kind of glossed over, and Pasha just kind of casually said it. He said that they're going to be changing the way that they distribute content, which, what does that mean? It could have something to do with just fundamentally changing the gear hub, and it's a pretty big change. Like that's a pretty big deal, I would say, if that is happening. So I don't know. It could also just be like they're gonna change like the crate rushes or whatever. Those whatever, doesn't really matter. I don't know what they're gonna do, but it's a thing that he mentioned, and I think it deserves some attention. Certainly cause for some speculation, I guess.
like works out as intended, but also we'll probably
You got Mina for 400 acorns, and it's your first legendary mech. Very cool.
monitor the meta more closely, starting from the first season in the spring. And if we see that like any of our plans like go wrong, we will make some corrections in the next season. So we would really like them to diverse from each other. So
Yeah, very good. Yeah, that was my last question. I don't know if you have something more to tell. That's your part.
I guess that pretty much that's it. What I probably want to tell is that we're really excited, looking forward to these changes, because we actually really want to give you guys a larger opportunity, larger number of content to choose from, and make them like equally playable. So we touched like a lot of things, and hope that you guys check it out, play test it on your end, say whether you like it or not, and drop us a feedback. We'll check it out, and probably we'll make some adjustments to that, because I think that will probably be more.
Which I plan on testing the stuff after they buff it, like the buffs and the nerfs. After this upcoming rebalance, I plan on trying all that stuff and making sure that like I'll let you guys and Plarium both know if I think that like it maybe, like, do I think it's enough? Do I think it's too much? Do I think it's like is Hellfire still really garbage? Yeah, probably. I expect Hellfire to still be garbage, but yeah, that's
open to such kind of feedback in the future. And yeah, that's it. looking forward to the great changes.
Exactly. Friends, I hope this little special was both informative.
Very interesting. Very interesting. I was, yeah. Yeah, I mean, the video's in the pinned message. It's a lot of information that I think gives us a better idea of what we're expecting. So, like, first off, I was expecting the meta to be changing every month. It's not. The meta is going to be changing every 3 months because the seasons are going to be lasting 3 months. At least the meta changing seasons. I don't know if like the battle pass or the season divisions or whatever are also going to be changing. I have no idea, but that doesn't really matter that much. Essentially, they're going to be making something that's similar to modifiers that boosts it by only like 10 to 15%. So it's not going to be like a crazy thing. So first off, even if it is being boosted, does not necessarily mean it's going to be meta. That's that's a good note to make. And second off, it's going to be lasting 3 months as opposed to 1 month, so you don't have to be constantly buying a bunch of new stuff every single month. 3 months is still a little bit much, but it's a lot more manageable. And then he also mentioned potentially there's going to be a new way, like they're going to change the way that they change the way that they distribute content is his exact words. I don't know what that means. It could be a change to the gear hub. It could be a change to like the crate rush events, for example. It could be simply just a change to like how they release new stuff. It could be like instead of releasing new stuff in a crate rush event, they do it some other way. It could be something really simple and inconsequential, or it could be something massive, but like he gave no details on it. And then the last thing is like, yeah, I don't know. Essentially, they plan on buffing a lot of stuff and nerfing some things. I don't think he specifically mentioned Surgery Eclipse, did he? Some people were saying that he did. He didn't. He was I mean he created a hypothetical scenario in which they did nerf Eclipse, but he didn't say that that was a thing that they were specifically strictly planning to do. So yeah, he mentioned Eclipse by name, but he didn't actually specifically say that that they were going to nerf it. He just gave like a hypo. It was for the sake of a question to answer a specific question. He was just kind of like it was a thought experiment essentially, a hypothetical scenario. I think that they probably will. I think they'll probably nerf both Surge and Eclipse anyway, but let it be known that they did not specifically, explicitly say that they were going to. So at least, yeah, there is that to be said. He did mention Surge and Eclipse getting a nerf. When? I don't recall it. I might have been not paying attention at the time. I almost missed a couple things. He said we're planning on nerfing those mechs. Was this toward the beginning? I don't know.
Buffs
Rather than nerfs?
Exactly.
But
that much of an overpowered outliers on the like higher end of the meta. It's basically these things that I've mentioned. I think that if Revokers, Surge, and Eclipse will be less effective, there will be.
That's essentially explicitly saying, yeah, no, that's fair. You're right. Make Pasha hair edit on you. You could do whatever you want, bro. Am I gonna grind tokens? I mean, I'm not gonna not get the last few tokens, yeah. But that pilot crate rush event has nothing to do with this video, so I'm not focusing on it. All right, so yeah, but either way, and okay. So one thing that he didn't mention, and again, somebody can correct me on this if I'm wrong, but I don't think that he mentioned Stormrack by name. Stormrack is a very obvious top weapon. And I think that it's arguably more OP than Revoker is, it's less annoying, but it's arguably more OP, if I'm being honest. So I don't know what's going on with that. I would still guess that they're probably going to nerf the reload implant. Like, if I had to guess, I think they're probably going to nerf the reload implant. But he did not explicitly mention it, I don't think. He didn't mention Storm. Yeah, well, most people don't. That's the thing, is like most people when they talk about top meta stuff, they mention Revoker. But if I'm being honest, I think Stormrack's like arguably more meta. It's arguably more OP because there's only a couple things that work really well with Revoker. Everything works really well with Stormrack because of the reload implant mostly. But like people, like it's less annoying. It's less in your face and egregious. So I feel like people don't complain about it as much. Stormrack is more versatile than Revoker. Yeah. Like you could, yeah, like I said, you could like everything works well with Stormrack, but only a couple things work well with Revoker. I don't know. Maybe they don't even change it. I think that it needs to be changed. The reload implant anyway. Bring it down to like 30%. I don't know what they're gonna do with it, but like if I were them, I probably would be doing that. He didn't mention Hemlock getting a nerf. Well, yeah, obviously, I'm not saying that just because it wasn't mentioned means that they're not going to do it. Like that's a dumb argument to make, right? Like he's obviously not going to specifically by name mention the things, every single little thing that they plan on nerfing or buffing. That would be a dumb argument, and I'm not making that argument. But the fact that he didn't mention it means that there is a chance that they don't, right? As opposed to like Revoker, like obviously, like he mentioned Search and Eclipse by name, meaning that they're definitely going to get some form of nerf. Removing mods is the easiest solution. Well, they're not going to remove mods, but they definitely need to change them. Like, if your proposed solution is to just completely delete something from the game, then you're wasting your time and you're wasting their time. Like, they're not going to do that. We all know that. And if everybody banded together and unanimously agreed that the best way to solve the problem was to remove mods entirely, then you just have a situation where everybody's disappointed because they're not going to do it. It's just not going to happen. It's a completely unrealistic stance to take. Like it's the same as pilots. Like they're in the game. It's too late. They're not gonna just be like, oh, okay, that's 6 months of our time completely wasted. Let's just get rid of it because you guys had a bad initial reaction. I think mods were a necessary feature. Well, maybe not necessary, but they were a very helpful feature. They just implemented them in a very bad way. If they were to reduce the number of layers, I think mods would be a fantastic feature. I think people would have a lot less problems with them. Do they need to reduce the number of layers? Yes, absolutely. I'm fully on board with that, and I think that they probably will at some point as well. In your opinion, Storms aren't as OP as Revoker? They need at least 2 mags to kill most things late game? Well, there's an argument to be made for that. But my thinking is like, from a technical standpoint, like the best weapon for every mech is essentially just Stormrack. Whereas the best weapon, like Revoker, is only the best weapon for like a couple things. So like if you're looking at the game as a whole, there are more things that are going to be really strong with Stormrack than they would with Revoker, and that's kind of the lens that I'm taking. You could look at it however you want, right? It's like the Surge versus Eclipse argument. Like there's arguments that go either way, and I don't think either one's necessarily wrong. But the point is that Stormrack is a stupidly OP weapon, and like it's just not been mentioned, which is interesting, I think. No one's spamming that. That's a timed message. That's just a thing that that Nightbot sends every 10 minutes. don't pay attention to it. Anyway, yeah. Well, that's it for that.
And entertaining for you. Show some love in the comments for Pasha and the team at Plarium, who are doing their best to improve our gameplay experience. Thank you, Pasha, for your time. It was a pleasure as always.
Do you think you're gonna say anything interesting after that? So, yeah, interesting. I definitely think that it really helps get a better idea of like what's going to happen. It really gives a better idea of what's going to happen. Also raises some some new questions that I didn't know I had before. But yeah, I don't know. You could mention Storms to Pasha once you have another interview. Well, I mean, the next one's probably not going to be for another year or so, probably. But we'll see. We'll see. My guess is, like, if I had to guess, because again, they're looking at primarily the game data itself, like how often people use it and how many MVPs it gets, etc., etc. So they're looking at the game data, not just individual people's feedback. So my guess is that they already know. And I don't necessarily think that I want to specifically advocate for Stormwreck being nerfed anyway, because I feel like it's not. It is OP, but it's not as annoying. It's not an annoying level of OP that Revoker is. And simply because of that, I'm kind of okay with it. And I think that's the same with a lot of people. I think a lot of people are kind of okay with it simply because it's not that annoying. So honestly, I'm okay just leaving it as it is, and I'm not going to create a fuss about it. They probably will nerf it anyway. I think that they probably will, but I don't think I'm going to specifically go up to them unless the meta changes to the point where everyone's using 4 Stormrack builds in their hangar. I'm probably not going to say anything about it. The whole reason that I play Mech Arena is because it's not as miserable as War Robots. I really, really, really hope they don't butcher this. Yeah, there's some. They're going in a direction that is similar to what War Robots does, I feel like. But that's not necessarily to say that it can't work. Right? I don't like War Robots. The thing with War Robots that a lot of people I think don't really realize is that it's not so much that everything War Robots does is bad. It's like the things that they do are fine, and they're honestly the same things that a lot of games do. They just go too far with it. They go way too far with it. So every like the new things that they release are typically like really, really stupidly strong. Most games when they release a new thing, it's pretty strong, right? That's kind of like they want people to be interested in the new thing. And that's not unusual at all. So I don't necessarily think that it's like just because it's sort of similar to War Robots is cause for immediate panic, but it's definitely the sort of thing where it's like keep your eyes open because it could easily go bad is what I'm trying to say. Stormrack is less brain dead rush than Revoker. Well, the scouts are what makes Revoker so OP. It's this. I honestly, I think the scouts are what's brain dead, not necessarily Revoker so much. Like every close quarters weapon is going to be brain dead so long as there are brain dead scouts to make them unkillable. Like there's every close quarters weapons just is just going to be brain dead in that case. So I think making the scouts less brain dead is the only way to really solve that. War Robots is too greedy. Well, yeah, obviously. Well, that's the thing. It's like every new thing is super powerful and super OP. So if you want something that's like, so anyone who buys the new thing, it's just gonna walk through anybody who doesn't. Not always, but a lot of the time, right? And we definitely don't want that here. We definitely do not want that here. But we'll find out if that is what happens. If it is what happens, then I think a lot of people are going to quit, and justifiably so. Yeah. I mean, I'll be the first to complain about it if that is what happens. How can we make scouts less brain dead? Yeah, I don't know. I think they need less HP, less firepower. A lot of what made scouts brain dead, honestly, in terms of like close quarters weapons, a large part of it was mods, to be fair. And I've explained this before, but it's like mods essentially just added a set number of static time in terms of kill time. First off, the first and most obvious problem is that Revoker is the fastest weapon to be able to kill something. Like, once mods were introduced, Revoker became the weapon that was able to kill the fastest. And if it's a weapon that's only usable on scouts, then obviously you're going to have a really big problem, because these scouts, they're really fast and they can make good use of Revoker against all of these mechs that can't really make good use of Revoker. And so they, by default, kind of have better killing power, as well as having really good speed and whatever extra abilities on top. So they have, even just like Stormwreck Deathwalker versus Revoker Eclipse. Revoker Eclipse has more killing power than Deathwalker does. It has less energy capacity, but it has more killing power, because it's very good with Revoker, and Deathwalker's kind of not. I mean, some people use it, but like it's not that good. It's not as good. So, or if you really want to argue about it, then we could talk about any other heavy mech besides like the Blockhorn or something like that. I don't know. But you get what I'm saying, right? Is like the HP of these scouts is less, but they essentially have a really, really big firepower advantage simply because they're able to use Revoker. And so that's obviously a pretty major problem. But then on top of that, it's this problem of like mods added, especially multi-layered mods, added a relatively static time on top of the kill time. So like anything that would normally take like 2 Revoker shots, let's say it takes like 6 now, whereas anything that you would last twice as long would last 4 Revoker shots, and would now last, if multi-layered took like 4 shots, instead of the difference between 2 and 4, which is double the amount of time, it's now the difference between 6 and 8, which is very, honestly, relatively minuscule amount of time difference. So the mods, because of the Revoker meta, specifically because of the multi-layered meta, I should say, the multi-layered mod meta, it really just like closed the gap in terms of how much time it took to kill each individual thing. So scouts, by comparison, got tankier and also got way more firepower. And that's a lot of what makes them brain dead. If you replace that with any other close quarters weapon, they'll still be relatively brain dead. But I think I think it would take a mods to change. They need to change the way that mods work. They need to change the way that mods work and make scouts, by comparison, at least not, so long as they don't have like a significant firepower advantage and they have a relatively reasonable like HP disadvantage, then you'd have to actually use them smart as opposed to just running in head first. Significantly larger maps would be really nice to separate the scouts. If it's too big, though, then it kind of becomes necessary to use a scout in order to just get across the map, though. And that's also a problem, right? Like, even just think about, like, Elon Station. It's such a pain in the ass to do anything on that map when you're not using a fast mech. That's just a fact. Maybe they can get rid of the boosted damage for the second strike on Revoker. That has nothing to do with it. Because, like, if one... when you fire a Revoker, at least let's say the Revoker 12, for example, and this also goes for Revoker 10, by the way. Revoker 10 is just as good, and I'm talking max level. The initial strike of a single Revoker hit is enough to take down a single lair, which means that the back return hit is also going to be enough, regardless of whether or not it gets the back damage. The back damage has nothing to do with it. It's mostly the fact that it can take down 2 layers per projectile. And that's what makes it take down multi-layered shields faster than anything else. It's because it takes down 2 layers per projectile. So that you get rid of the back damage, it wouldn't have any effect on it whatsoever. I think that the more reasonable approach, or the, maybe not more reasonable, but the more effective approach, let's say, the more effective approach would be to say, if it hits a shield on the way in, then it doesn't deal the secondary damage, period. So you can just, you keep the high RPM, you keep the really high damage output, but if it hits a shield, you don't get that back damage. That would make blockades better, because you could actually block revoker damage with a blockade shield, right? You could actually block more revoker damage with a blockade shield. That would make blockades better. That would make solid shields better. That would make all kinds of things better and more usable. And it would also make revoker not be the absolute pinnacle of killing power, because it would essentially double the amount of time that it takes to kill, to destroy a multi-layered shield, which, by the way, is like, what is it? 3.5 shots currently, so it'd be like 7 shots total, or 9 shots, whatever. Like, it wouldn't be a major difference in terms of kill speed, in terms of kill time, but I think it would really significantly shorten the gap between different things, and it would make stuff like Repeater and Reaver would be really good at destroying. They'd be even better at taking down multi-layered shields, but they have that reload time, so it's like, there's downsides to it still. And then you'd have that kind of like pro-con situation. I personally think that that's the way that they should do it. I doubt that they're going to do it, but I think that's the way that they should do it. They need the final shot of Tetra Rifle to damage the mech, not just the galvanic hull. I feel like it does, though. I actually think the Tetra Rifle damage boost thing is bugged. It does a stupid amount of damage to the mech itself, and only a little bit goes into the galvanic hull. That's been my experience, at least as of a while ago. I haven't really fought a lot of enemies with galvanic hull on my free-to-play account. They can slow down the revoker. Well, they could do a lot of things. There's a lot of ways that they could nerf revoker. They could also just nerf the damage, right? Like, if they nerf the damage enough to where because again, it goes back to, like, it's just a matter of whether or not the projectile hit is sufficient for taking down a multi-layered shield, like a layer. Let's say that they don't change the mod shields. If they nerf the damage enough to where the first initial hit is not enough to take down a single layer, you then need 2 initial hits to take down 1 layer, and then the 2 return hits each take down a layer. So instead of 4 layers per 1 double shot, you get 3 layers per 1 double shot, and that also reduces the amount of that increases the kill time, that reduces the killing speed of revoker by a little bit. So, like, you can, there's a lot of things that you could do. It's just a matter of which one's the most effective. I think in terms of the reason that I think that the best way to do it is by getting rid of the return damage on in the event that it hits a shield, is because revoker is the main reason that nobody uses blockade mods. I think that a lot of people at this point have just accepted the absolute dominance of perimeter multilayer. They've just accepted it and they don't care. But I think that all of the different legendary mod shields should have relatively equal value, as opposed to one specific one being just objectively better in all scenarios. So, I'm also partially thinking about it in terms of how to balance out blockade mods, how to balance out the solid mods, and the balance out the difference between, like, the solid ones and the multi-layered ones. Could Orion be getting a nerf? No, I doubt it. I don't think that they're going to touch anything that's not legendary. I think they're only going to be touching legendary stuff. You hope Reaver will be top meta or Repeater. I hope it's not as meta as Revoker is. I I just want the game to be balanced. I don't even care what's meta, to be honest. I just want the game to be relatively balanced. Like, so long as the top meta stuff is not too far off from other stuff, I'm happy. You see Manny playing with 1 layer blockade shields? Well, yeah, but he doesn't. He got those because those are the most expensive ones, and they have the highest percentage stats. So he just assumes that they're the best. They're not actually. Parasite get nerfed? I guess it's possible. It's possible. Because, like, another thing is, like, you have to think about it in terms of... I think Dreadnought's going to get a nerf, and I think Gemini's going to get a nerf. Because, like, the thing is, like, you have to think about it in terms of, like... first off, they didn't mention Stormrack at all, which is arguably, like, extremely... It's very comparable to Revoker. But you have, like, I'm thinking of it in terms of, like, how often do people complain about it? Hemlock is not necessarily a major issue outside of Hangar Showdown. I think it's mostly getting a nerf because people complain a lot about it. It's something that people generally don't enjoy dealing with. The same thing with Revoker, right? Like, people, Revoker and Stormrack are both relatively equally OP, but people complain about Revoker because it's more annoying. So I think the things that are generally really strong, but also generally annoying, are more likely to get nerfs. So Dreadnought for SP droppers. Gemini is incredibly annoying, especially a lower SP, so I think that's going to get nerfed. Parasite is also very, very annoying. It's also really strong. Like, it is a meta mech, but it's not like top meta. It's not. I don't even think it's like top 5 really. But I think it probably will get. I think it very well could get a nerf simply because it's annoying and people don't like to deal with it. And you're going to get more negative feedback for something that's annoying. And you're going to get more people calling for a nerf simply because they don't like dealing with it. So I think that part of what they're deciding, like part of the deciding factor in terms of what gets a nerf, what gets a buff, part of it is to do with player feedback. And if everyone's feedback is generally against the stuff that's annoying, whether it's OP or not, I think there's a high chance that it does get a nerf. Gemini takes time, only 1 enemy. I mean, like, Gemini is not the topmost meta, but it's insanely meta at lower SP. Like, don't make no mistake. Do I think that Gemini needs a nerf? I think it kind of needs a rework. I don't think it's inherently terrible in higher SP matches. It's really strong, but it's not super OP. I think it just needs a slightly longer reload time, to be honest. Like, you could even up the damage, but just increase the reload time. I think the spam capacity of Gemini is a little bit too high. Late swing is also annoying. Yeah, it might. Yeah. And anything that you can think of that people generally consider to be really irritating to deal with, that also happens to be incredibly strong and relatively meta, is on, I would say, not necessarily on the chopping block, but to some extent, I think it is prone to being nerfed, yeah. They ain't nerfing Late Swing. I mean, they might. I don't. If they did nerf it, I doubt that they're going to do much that, like, meaningful to it. They'd probably just reduce the speed, reduce the HP, maybe. Like, the mech fundamentally is just a mech with 2 jumps, and that's never going to change. And even they could get rid of the mines entirely. They could reduce the HP, they could reduce the speed, and it would be just as effective, realistically. It wouldn't be less effective, but I think it is prone to getting some type of nerf anyway. I think that is probably a thing that could happen. Snipers need buffs. Well, they just need to rework the mod shields so where they don't have as many layers. Which they might end up doing, but they're not going to do it anytime soon, I don't think. Mines are pretty much useless on... Well, yeah, I know. But what I'm saying is that the thing that makes Lacewing so good is that it has the jumps, and they're almost certainly not going to remove the jumps. So even if they do nerf it, it's not going to be an impactful nerf. Is essentially all I'm saying. Like it's pretty much guaranteed to not be changed much, if at all. I don't think Overdriver is going to get nerfed. No. I don't think they're going to nerf Overdriver or Minigun. Yeah. Lace Swing needs a lot of skill to be annoying. I completely disagree with that. No. No, I don't think Lace Swing needs a lot of skill at all. I think it's just a matter of whether or not it's a good map for Lace Swing. I mean, you could play it really badly, but I don't think that that's necessarily indicative of a lot of skill being necessary. Like, yeah, some people play it really, really terribly, but I think it's pretty easy to not be an idiot, right? Like, I give people the benefit of the doubt there. I think it's relatively easy to not be, like, completely stupid. So to that extent, no, I don't think it takes a lot of skill, but it is very map dependent in terms of how strong it is. Like, it's really strong on some maps and honestly pretty weak on others. Do I think they're gonna nerf it? I think they might. I think they could. But regardless of whether they nerf it or not, it doesn't really matter because it's fundamentally not going to be changed, almost guaranteed. They forgot about artillery. That's kind of true. Lace swing equals jump equals skill. Yeah, that's not really true, but... Anyway, yeah. What was this? It's been like 2 hours, yeah. Well, that's about it. I didn't plan on doing anything else on the stream. I was just going to be going over this. That was it. Any final thoughts before I ban every single one of you? No, I'm just going to end the stream, though. I started kind of late. Your friend is terrible with lacewing, even though it's easy to use? Well, I mean, sure, but that's... Yeah. Just because some people are really bad doesn't mean that everyone who isn't really bad is really good. Gonna grind tokens for the last pilot. Gonna grind the last pilot tokens? Yeah, probably, but off stream, not on stream. I'll just do it on my own time. Alright, well, I don't think anybody else has anything to say, really. Some interesting things. Yes, this will end up... well, will I put this on the Clips channel? Yeah, I might. It's kind of like I basically be putting the entire full stream up on there, but whatever, bro. Whatever. I also might I might make an announcement regarding the post or the Clips channel at some point soon. So yeah, there's that too. At least make a disc launcher equal to Podgun. I hope they make everything equal to each other. I mean, that's the ideal, right? Like, I don't want any one thing to be strictly better than anything else. Like, if it's legendary, if they're both legendary, then I think they should both be relatively equally viable. Maybe not on the same things, maybe not in the same situations. Like, that's dumb, obviously. But everything should have inherent value, right? There should be some situation somewhere at some point where I would be inclined to use Disc Launcher over Podgun. There should be some realistic scenario in which I would actually actively want to have Disc Launcher rather than Podgun. But in the current stage of the game, like the current case, is that that's not really true. Am I going to stream tomorrow? No, almost certainly not. The Orion Pierce is really strong against mods. Yeah. It's like the only... That's why Orion's the best sniper mech, because of the Shield Pierce. Anyway, yeah. Appreciate everybody for stopping by. Take care.